Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Stepsbasic, and welcome back to my community show. So, I've been looking at it again to see how long Days Gone it's going to be. And it always seems like I always get into these games that just take way too long to beat. I mean, I love this game, and I really want to keep playing it. But I want to get onto the new stuff already, which is why I kind of want to go back to, two series at a time. Because then I can do, another series on the side while I'm working on Days Gone at the same time. But, we'll see. But anyway, getting close to the end. Much, much closer. I looked it up, and there's some end game stuff, like after you've completed the story, that I'm going to have to do. But, still getting really close to the end there. So, yay. But also, yay. Weird. But anyway, that's not what's important. What's important is today's topic. Today, we are going to be talking about something called Suspension of Disbelief. Now, that's a very interesting little topic there, Stepsbasic. Where'd you come up with that one? Well, that's one of the things that permeates all sorts of media, really, from your stories to your movies, to your video games, to your radio shows, all sorts of things. And it's an interesting concept because, when you think about life, life is nothing like what you read in the books and what you read in the stories. Now, of course, there are certain situations that can come to pass in both, but for the most part, the stories and the entertainment that we, consume are divorced from reality. That's where suspension of disbelief comes in, because we know when we're watching something like, Avengers, we know that there's no such thing as superheroes, and we know that Thanos is not going to snap his fingers and eradicate half the world or anything like that. We all know this. And that's where that whole suspension of disbelief comes in, because we, while completely are well aware of the fact that this is not real and this cannot happen, we suspend our natural skepticism, our natural disbelief, as it were, in order to sit down and enjoy the movie as we're watching it. And for the most part, this works, We can sit down and enjoy a movie and whatnot, but there are certain things that help to violate said natural order of, suspending our disbelief. And that generally comes into play when a media, a movie, specifically a title, violates the rules of its own universe. I know I've addressed that before, the rules of a universe. When you see things in, like Avengers Endgame, spoilers, sorry. This is the best idea I got for it. But take the end scene of Avengers Endgame when, Captain America comes back from his trip out to see Peggy and all that. That scene violated the rules that were established by Endgame in so much as time travel was possible. And it was a hard one to ignore. It was a hard break to ignore because it violated the rules that movie itself actually set forth regarding time travel, i.e., Captain America there, Steve, should not have been able to come back. He should not have been able to meet the Avengers there in the end and, say, hi, how you doing, and all that, and pass off the shield and stuff like that. Now, of course, there are a few explanations I can offer that will support their decision, but without their explanation or their affirmation of those theories, as it were, that scene itself broke the suspension of disbelief, at least for me and a few of my friends I know. And they're kind of upset about the fact that really stood out. And now it's kind of funny when you think about it, when you're like, I was watching a movie about superheroes. I was watching a movie about the end of the world and half the universe was dead and all that stuff. But it's this one scene about time travel that I don't like, that really sticks out to me as untrue. And that is in and of itself the point. Because everything else up until that point satisfied the rules within the universe that we were watching, which enabled a clean suspension of disbelief. But then that scene happened, and that pushed the boundaries of what we were able to suspend, because we know the rules as they have been established, as they were established in the beginning of the movie. Well, towards the beginning of the movie, not the ultimate beginning of the movie. And therein lies the crux of our suspension, you know? You can't just say, hey, this is how it's going to be, and then at the very end say, no, this is how it actually was. Because, rules. And that's why we can watch movies with zombies in. We can watch movies about superheroes. We can watch movies about friggin' judges and their guns and psychic telekinetic folks, because they have rules within their universe that, if we can understand it, we can suspend our own, knowledge of what reality is in order to sit in their universe for a little bit and enjoy what we're watching. Of course, if you fully immerse yourself into it and all of a sudden you feel like you're in there, then there's a little more questions about yourself if you're enjoying watching people get hurt and stuff. But that's always something that's kind of fascinating me about the human brain and whatnot, because humanity, we can adjust and adapt to a lot of things. Given enough immersion within it, we can learn and adapt and become suited to that on account of our natural intelligence and whatnot. While people will occasionally resist change and can fight against the adaptations, for the most part, we still manage to adapt and change and become suited to things like that. And that is very helpful when we're watching our media and whatnot, when we're understanding the rules of a universe that's not our own. I thought it would be an interesting thing sometime to kind of put like a completely logical being in front of a movie about space heroes and superheroes and whatnot, and see the reaction that would cause, because I think part of our adaptability comes from the fact that we can experience emotions and empathy and compassion and whatnot, so we can see ourselves within situations, and we can feel pain and sorrow along with and for the heroes that we watch, and the media we enjoy. Now, that was one thing that I found was interesting. An idea that I had ticking around in my brain to see what sort of logic it would entail. Now, of course, a completely logical being would understand one thing, that people watch things like that for entertainment, and therefore would automatically know it was false. But the question remains, would they be able to enjoy it, knowing full well and completely that it was false, without being able to suspend their disbelief for it? Interesting. Now, that there was a lot of things. I know I think I brought this up as a talking point when I was discussing the Battlefield 1 nonsense. Everyone was all up in arms about it, because you're like, rah, this is not historically accurate and whatnot. And a lot of people were countering with the fact, well, you never had respawn and whatnot in World War II, so that's not really accurate either. And therein lies the crux of the whole suspension of disbelief idea. Everyone is all up in arms about, things not meshing properly with history, but at the same time complaining about that within a video game and the laws within that video game. Now, I don't know exactly particularly how historically accurate the Battlefield series is. I know some people harp on about wanting it to be completely 100% historically accurate, but honestly, I don't care. It's a video game. I'm going to play it and I'm going to enjoy it. But if it's been established within the laws of Battlefield that they are completely historically accurate, but within a video game, then the rules would mandate that you cannot suspend your disbelief for the sake of a story. their own interpretation of a story. But, that's a bigger conversation within itself, and quite frankly, my opinion comes down to I don't really care. It's a video game. I haven't played it, so I don't really know. And the same thing with the whole Endgame situation. After I saw the scene, my brain started ticking over. It's like, how do I explain this? How do I rationalize this to avoid, suspending my suspension of disbelief? And so my theory is the obvious theory, actually. It should be the obvious theory anyway. Everybody was given enough Pym particles to travel back in time and then come home. And Captain used his to travel back in time. And I imagine he would have had enough to jump to each individual point and then come back home. So at the end of the story, he had enough to come back home, and say he waited till after the events of Endgame, or what would have been after the events of Endgame, and then he came home to talk to, Bucky and Sam and whatnot. And that's my explanation of how it happened, because it still fits within the rules of the universe and helps me to maintain my disbelief, as it were. Or my lack of disbelief, as it were. Now, of course, there's a lot more conversation to be had about the Endgame movie and whatnot, because a lot of people are so up in arms about that end scene, and I thought it was terrific. But I understand. People got their gripes and whatnot, and I can kind of see where some of them are coming from, but a lot of the times they kind of ignore the situation or don't truly understand the emotions involved, and and without understanding those, then that scene in itself loses a lot of its meaning and power and impact. But that's just me. But anyway, that's it for this episode. This is a short one compared to the last few I've been doing, but that's all right. Short and sweet. That's how I like them. Between 12 and 15 minutes. That's what I like, because it helps me get it together. I can edit it quickly, and then I'm done. But anyway, if there's any topics you guys would like me to talk about, I will address them. And I do have my next stream of consciousness one coming up next week. It's not going to be as tough as it's been. So this one's going to be kind of talking about adjusting after military life. It's not an easy topic to talk about, but it's not as bad as some of the other things I've talked about. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me for today's episode of The Communist Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, please go and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down in the comment section down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can, when I can, if I can, all that jazz. And tune in next time for another topic at another time. And until then, good night.